I run into a lot of delusional fans. I know that you're more ingrained into the Notre Dame side of this, and I'm sure you see all sorts. I am not one that pinpoints or comes down hard on any fan base to say they're dumb, they're delusional, they're anything. I think those are elements in every fan base. There's smart fans, there are casual fans, there are really intelligent fans that take the deep dive, there are delusional, stupid fans, dumb fans, trolling fans, all that. They exist in every fan base.
Yeah.
So there's not a bad fan base and a great fan base.
Sure.
They're all mixed up. Now, the Notre Dame people that watch me, of course, they probably like to poke me a little bit. That's probably part of it. And then also some of it's just crazy talk. Like,
right.
And I understand it and I think the same thing happens to Ohio State fans. If there is a team that they are going to face, let's say it's Alabama, that's had the best of them historically or recently, but you have this pride in you that you want your program to be number one. You have a case for them being number one, and Ohio State has that case over the last 15 or 20 years. Then you're going to take exception to that. And every fan base and every individual fan is obviously going to slant the argument way in their favor and take all the facts that support their argument and then disregard what doesn't. Now, I will attack some of the Notre Dame fans just because it's easier, because Ohio State's just been flat out a much better program. That's not debatable.
Sure.
Like that's what's funny is when something's not debatable, I think that people take this as a personal attack or it's an attack on their character. You can't control your team's wins and losses, folks. Do not take this as like your own personal value is attached to your team's win-loss record. You know, they're completely, this doesn't make you a good person or a bad person. You're fine. You root for a team. If they lose, if their coach cheats on his wife and does something wrong, you know, you can't control that. It's not your fault, you know, so you're fine. But at the same time, Ohio State fans come back with all the historical evidence, recent historical evidence, and that's not going to come into play on Saturday. They're going to line up as two different football teams, somewhat similar to what happened in 2022 in regards to the teams that came on the field, and in some ways very different to the teams that lined up in 2022. So, you know, what's come across your plate in regards to this back and forth? Because, again, I think when any two great programs get together, there's going to be a little vitriol. But I think there's a certain element here because these two programs are right at the top historically, and they're close in geographic proximity. And Notre Dame could be playing in the Big Ten, but they're not. But they're in the heartland, right in the middle of Indiana, and have rivalries with other Big Ten schools. Now, this has been kind of more of a rivalry off the field than on the field. So there's a lot involved there between two proud fan bases.
Yeah, I guess first and foremost, one of my favorite things is when I hop on Twitter and I see one of your tweets about like how fans are dumb or whatever. And I'm always like, oh no, what was said on Mark Rogers' show today? Because I always see like the Notre Dame one. I think I quote tweeted one of your tweets a few weeks ago, trying to defend Notre Dame fans a little bit, but also not defending them a little bit as well. Because like you said, I mean, there are some bad fans, there are some good fans. But I guess fans nonetheless, right? And then, you know, one of the comments you mentioned about Ohio State being a better program than Notre Dame, and I think what some people don't like to picture when someone says that is that there are tier systems, right? Like the top 5 can be significantly better than number 6. And I think most people would agree over the last, I would say like 5 to 7 years, Notre Dame has probably been comfortably a top 10 football program, right? If you want to argue that they've been 6, if you want to argue they've been 10, whatever it may be, it doesn't mean that let's just say they're number 8. It doesn't mean that they're close to number 2, right? And I think that's where sometimes when someone says, hey, Ohio State's a significantly better program than Notre Dame over the last 30 years, it doesn't mean Notre Dame's number 50. It just means that they're not on Ohio State's level. And so just to clarify your comment a little bit further, that's what I run into a lot when I try to tell someone, hey, Notre Dame's a top 10 team. They're like, no, they're not. And I'm like, I didn't say they were number 1. I didn't say that they were number 3. I said that they were top 10. So there is a difference there, and I think sometimes it just doesn't get clarified maybe as much as it should. But yeah, with this game specifically, I think it's really going to come down to Sam Hartman. I tweeted this yesterday. Last year's game was what was it? I think Notre Dame was either up or tied with Ohio State going into the fourth quarter, or like really, really close to the fourth quarter, right? It was like 10-7 or something like that, or 10-10. And they had Tyler Buckner at quarterback. Now, if you would have asked me last year, I would have said that's a good thing, because I was a Tyler Buckner fan. I was hoping that Tyler Buckner was going to be the next great Notre Dame quarterback. I had high hopes for him, right? Obviously, has not come to fruition. I think some of it's, fault to his own. Some of it's probably not fault to his own. Injuries and different things like that probably haven't helped him develop the way he could have. That's exactly why Notre Dame brought in Sam Hartman. They knew going into this year they had a roster that could potentially compete for at least a playoff spot. They had a schedule where if they had a good record with that schedule, they're going to get into a playoff spot, right? If they win, obviously if they go 12-0, but even if they go 11-1 and you beat both, let's just say they win their home games and they lose at Clemson, they're probably going to make the playoff just because they went 11-1. They beat Ohio State, they beat USC, they beat a couple other good teams on their schedule, and the only loss they had was at, obviously another really good program in Clemson. You're probably not getting that if you're rolling out the same Tyler Buckner, Drew Pine, potentially Steve Angeli this year. You needed a guy like Sam Hartman to come in. And there were some other guys that they were looking at, but once Sam Hartman essentially entered the portal, or was going to, or it was perceived that he was going to enter the portal, because I do think there were some things behind the scenes there. I'm not going to lie about that. Where it just was too easy, and they had to, they had to jump on that. And I think if there was nobody there to jump on, they potentially would have tried to go with Tyler Buckner and see if, hey, a full healthy season of him, what happens, right? But we'll see what happens, because I think that's the reason Sam Hartman's here, right? Is to potentially win a national championship.
Nathan, you started watching college football when?
I was born in 93. So
the year that Notre Dame should have won a national championship. So this is something else I
don't remember that
with
game,
people that roll out the national championship talk, is that yes, national championships are the reasons these teams play, and we have a more structured system that legitimizes the national champion more so than at any time in history. But when people roll out 1988, like we've got on the screen right there, in my book, I've got a sheet. I've done the analysis, and nobody's necessarily listening to me, but I count 1993 as a national championship for Notre Dame. I don't know how you don't. They had the same record as Florida State. They beat them head to head. How are they not the national champion, or at least a share of a national champion? I don't know. So anyway, so 1993.
Yeah, those were weird back then, right?
Oh, there were a lot of weird ones. Yeah, all sorts of weird.
Yeah, it's hard to
don't make any sense.
Yes. Yeah, most of my era is the BCS era, where at least you had two teams and they battled it out, I guess, right? But if you start claiming national championships, it gets a little crazy.
Yeah, so you probably started watching around 10 years old, something like that.
Yeah, I would say that what the first couple of years I remember were probably like the Justin Tuck, Julius Jones.
Oh yeah.
That era of like the early 2000s. Yeah.
And so I wondered this about Notre Dame fans, because conference championships used to mean a lot. Like they used to mean practically what a national championship did, because again, when I grew up, and I'm dating myself significantly, but we'd go to bed on New Year's night and you wouldn't even know who the national champion was. You would guess probably is going to be Texas or Alabama because they were this and then they won, or maybe they could vote for them. Then you'd get up the next morning and you'd open the newspaper and find out who won the national championship because there was a vote overnight.
Right.
But so conference championships were huge. If Ohio State won the Big Ten championship, went to the Rose Bowl, successful season.
Yep.
Notre Dame doesn't have that. So you can only win a national championship in regards to championships. So just in regards to evaluating these seasons from year to year and having some level of satisfaction or being able to celebrate a season, that's got to be, well, I guess it's not odd for you because that's what you've lived, but
Yeah.
kind of odd in regards to evaluating each season.